So meat, fish, chicken, and dairy block the flow of the spiritual energy. So on a spiritual level, being a vegan is the optimum diet. Being a live food vegan is even more optimal. Well, why? Well, one of the reasons, okay, so I've explained about the animal, and I'll also say that you also, when you eat the animal and the blood is in the flesh, you're taking animal soul into you. When that lowers your soul frequency, that's important because we want to be at the highest octave. And that is not what we want when we're evolving spiritually. Now, that being said, when we go back into the idea of physical strength, but also emotional balance. So are we going to stay at the level of animal emotions, or are we going to have more refined human emotions? Is our mind going to be filled with anxiety, fear, death, misery, pain? Or by not eating, that pain, fear, and misery, is our mind going to be clear? Well, clear is going to be clear. That's why in almost all the great traditions, spiritual traditions, the diet is a plant-based diet. It's not an accident. It's cleaner, causes less disruption of the energetic flow, but also the mental state. So we want a physical, emotional, and mental state that's clearer. Okay, the second thing I recommend is fasting, at least twice a year, because there's a lot of toxins that build up, bowel toxins, different things. Just a week on juices diluted in half. Okay, so that's one foundation. Second foundation is I love to do sacred dancing. I may have done a little dancing last time I was there, and also the different levels of yoga. I do tri yoga 6 days a week. Maintains the flexibility and strength and balance. And with age, balance is really, really key. Really key. So my wife, who's a tri yoga teacher, tree yoga teacher, so gets on my case about different balance type of things. And that's part of the story, You want to have that balance. Okay. So we have sacred dance, we have yoga, we also have breathing. People by the time they hit 70 have lost, if they're not doing breathing exercises, actually lose about 50% of their lung capacity. So, hey, oxygen's a food too. So I can't just talk about nuts and seeds when oxygen is our main fuel. Got to have our brain working right. Now, another step is service and charity. So we do service programs all over the world, diabetes prevention programs around the world. That's good. Working with a spiritual teacher is important. Nutritional teacher. I teach lots of people all over the world, and I support people. As much meditation as possible. With age, from about 30 years old and on. Okay, so that's what I mean by age. The brain shrinks 0.4% per year. 0.4% per year, the brain is shrinking. Wow. So what do you got to do to reverse that? Well, it turns out the research shows meditation increases the size of your brain. Most people don't know that. Okay, it does a bunch of things, right? It gives you a physiology. If you're meditating regularly for about 5 years, it gives you a physiology of about 15 years younger. That's pretty important. So I'm not meditating for that reason, but I've been meditating for about 50 years in the picture. Okay, it works. It works on multiple levels. I'm doing it for spiritual reasons, but I get the physiological benefit. So I can't seriously talk to you about a lifestyle of rejuvenation and longevity without including meditation. Can't do it. And as much awakening of the spiritual energy as possible, which actually I've been doing over the internet with people. And maybe in our real truth about health, which I'm giving you the real truth now. I'm not giving you the real truth about nutritional health. It's about health, holistic health. And maybe we'll set it up so I can have a meditation class. I mean, I haven't talked to Steve about it, but it's just an idea because we can do it. It works. Okay. So now the sevenfold peace, which is more a little bit more Essene, involves peace with the body, peace with the mind, peace with the family, that's your sacred relations, peace with the community. Now, that doesn't, we have a very disruptive world today. Okay, fine. Can we find the right interface so we're not disrupted by it? That's extremely important. I can't tell you how many people around the world are feeling their lives pushed out of balance by what's going on in the world today. It's huge. So, well, if that's going on, we have increased anxiety, we have increased suicide by tenfold. Teenagers are freaking out. Okay. Got to have some peace there. And then peace with all cultures, and that's the living earth, what we call Native American rock people, and then peace with the plant world, animal world, and human cultures. Peace with the ecology, I call sacred ecology, and peace with God. And when you put all those together, then you're talking about a holistic approach to life. You're talking about a way of life that heals and balances you on every level. So that's how I think is the framework I like to talk in. Just one other thing, and this is a little bit about, again, a way of life, is most people's neurotransmitters are out of balance. Okay? Stress, this, that. And when people are fasting and meditating, the neurotransmitter production comes back into balance. And I don't have to, well, I'll just say, under the stresses of today, a lot of people have gotten very imbalanced. And really, it's almost hard for people to think. So when we're doing all these things, it isn't just that we're calming the mind, we're actually balancing the neurotransmitters. Almost everybody I see has neurotransmitter imbalances. So it's very important. So all these 13 points help balance the brain, create a calmer and, more important, happier mind. You got to be happy here. Spiritual joy is the key, okay, to being healthy, physically, emotionally, mentally. We know when people are sad, their physiology diminishes. So that's the overview I'm giving, okay? So I can make sense of a actual real discussion here about nutrition, because nutrition is one of the foundations. But the real truth is much bigger. So what I'm talking about is creating a way of life. That's the key. A way of life that enhances you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. A holistic way of life. And for those who are spiritually interested, more focused, it's a way of life that can lead you to liberation. And that's the big picture. That's my key point, is how do I give support people in a way of life that can help lead them naturally to liberation. It's not a technique, it's a way of life. So that's the kind of the opening statement I want to make to help people kind of get an overview of why are we doing this? Okay, so I hope that is helpful to everybody.
Is the ultimate diet raw green vegetables, sprouts, seeds, sea vegetables? Would you add or take anything away from diet? How would you get full? Would you be missing any nutrients on the diet?
Okay, so the ultimate diet also, as I explained, depends on the ratio of protein, fat, and carbohydrates in each other. My diet, which I've been on for a long time, works. I'm strong. I'm not losing weight. So what's my diet? Okay, my diet is vegetables primarily and sprouts. Okay, then nuts and seeds, and a little bit of fruit. That's the goji berries, which is one of the top 3 longevity foods. I also take certain Chinese herbs, that are like longevity type herbs, which I won't go into. I'm just trying to explain. That's my diet. But there's another thing. The less you eat, the longer you live. So my diet isn't about how much I can get into one bowl or having a bigger bowl. My diet consists of what I can digest, and I do not take digestive enzymes. I used to, but at age 77, which is perspective, I haven't taken digestive enzymes for a year or two. I just stopped needing them. What's that about? My digestive powers have increased. So that's another thing is, you see, if we're really in harmony, we're going to get healthier. So I'm challenging the idea that with age you get weaker and less healthy, your digestion goes down, your mind goes away. I'm challenging that by my direct experience. I like to challenge things, and those are assumptions. Oh, with age you're going to get older and weaker. Nah, that's not true. But you got to work harder. Okay. So for me, it's vegetables primarily and sprouts, avocado, olives. I mean, I'm in Israel. We have a lot of olives. Like even in our yard, we have olives, right? Okay. So, and nuts and seeds. Now, I like them soaked because you're taking out a certain enzyme blockers from it. And that's it. That's what I do. And again, I'm only eating one meal of that, and in the morning, just a little bit of cacao and goji berries. So it's simple, but I didn't start there. I started eating 3 meals a day. That's how I started. But as you get healthier, as your digestive powers increase, is what I'm talking about here, I don't even need enzymes anymore. And I have more digestive power and I'm eating less food because I'm absorbing more of the food. Understand, we're dynamic. It's not a set thing. So I call it eating outside of the box.
Are all raw nuts okay to eat? Does the quantity matter? And should they be soaked? Should cashews and peanuts be avoided?
Okay, that's a few questions. So there are, I'm going to just mention peanuts in Bali. There's a special kind of peanut in Bali. I don't really eat peanuts, but there is a peanut that's a different species in Bali. It's good to eat. The rest have lots of fungus and stuff. Okay. Cashews can have some problem because they're often cooked. I learned that in India because if you just eat the raw cashew, you can get severe allergies. I saw people treating people. It's like their whole bodies burst forth in allergy. It's like a little scary. When you're out in the middle of the jungle, it's a little awkward. So, but you can get cashews. You can get some raw cashews, and when you put them in hydropractor, which is what we do with all our nuts and seeds, if it's fizzing, like with walnuts, which are really good, it's got fungus on it. It's got bacteria on it. So I do recommend soaking at least 3% hydrogen peroxide, then soaking it. When you soak it, first it's easier to digest, but you do release the proteolytic enzyme blockers. Okay, so you're going to get a better digestion. Now, the other thing that a lot of people do is, in a sense, blend the nuts and seeds. You soak them, then you blend it. It's easier to digest. So if your digestion is a little weak, fine. Soak them a few times in that way, just like 10 minutes, and then blend it. So, and then we have to be aware, for example, that sunflower seeds aren't so good for type O, blood type. You can only just have maybe 5% of a meal sunflower seeds. Sesame seeds are the best for type B. So I'm just kind of making some subtleties there that seem to be a worth considering in the picture. Our blood types they play a role. We know that type O, for example, are more protected from COVID. Type A is the least protected. I mean, there's a whole thing, but with foods, and I do talk about it in my books, you do need to eat with some awareness of your blood type versus your food choices.
From a health standpoint, should we try to add oils such as flax, hemp, and walnut oil to our diets, or should we try to avoid it?
I know there's a variety of controversy about it. Okay. I approach it from a slightly different thing. I actually don't really use hardly any oils. So for my own personal, very little. May use here. I'm in Israel. I use a little olive oil. Okay, fresh olive oil for salad dressing. So it's very little. You know, I would say less than a teaspoon. But the question is, are oils bad? Well, first of all, if you're a person who needs a higher fat, higher protein diet, not like me, I don't need much oil. I don't need much protein. Actually, I don't need much carbohydrate, but the vegetables and things and sprouts are the carbohydrate for me. Okay. So I think it depends on your constitution. So for me, I don't have a lot of fat in my diet. Now, I will say, as I've observed, people aren't getting as much fat as they should have, plant-based fat. I like people, I say between 25 and 45% of your diet. But that includes nuts and seeds. Those little salad dressing. But personally, I don't have a lot of oil. Now I'm talking about myself. Now in general, some people for their physiology cannot get all the oil they need just from their food. And so it may be balancing. People who are vata, in Ayurvedic we have kapha, pitta, vata. Kapha people don't do well with oil. I'm more kapha. Vata people actually are balanced, calmed, and soothed with oil. Well, I'm going to tell that kind of person, which I do, you need oil, not just food, but you need to rub it on your body. You need to do what we call abhyama, where you're rubbing oil on your body, because your body needs oil to balance yourself. Kapha people like myself, we don't need so much oil. Actually, it's not so good for us. So there's a lot of variations. So when we come out with these generalizations, it's going to be true for a certain percentage, maybe 30% of the people. And they're the ones saying, yeah, you don't need oil. Okay, fine, you don't need oil. But lots of people, they certainly do need more oil in their diet. So your constitution plays a role. Myself, I don't really have much oil. And I'm saying probably less than a teaspoon totally a day, probably less than that. So is it totally, an extracted oil is not the same potency as what you get in nuts and seeds. And that's actually where I get most of my oil from. But maybe I will have it with a little bit of salad dressing to balance the dryness of the salad. But I also will do avocado. So I'm more interested in the oil that's already inherent in it. I think it's better. But you can't always get enough oil that way if you're a person that needs more oil in their diet. I said 25 to 45%. I'm more like 25%. Other people need like much higher levels.